What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Bulls Report. Coming up on today's show, Bleacher Report suggested a Brandon Ingram trade for Chicago. And then on the second half of today's show, Tyler Smith, a potential draft target for Chicago at pick 11. I'll be giving you guys my full scouting report for the G League Ignite prospect. But before we dive into that, guys, if you guys want the Bulls to do anything this offseason, and I mean anything, just send a message, drop a like on today's show, because if I had to pick one team out of all major sports leagues that have made the least amount of moves over the last couple of years, it's probably the Chicago Bulls. So let's get the good mojo going if you want the Bulls to make a splash this summer, like today's video. But it was Bleacher Report that connected Chicago to the New Orleans star forward, and it's a pretty interesting thought, but there's one key part of this, which we'll get to here in a second. But this is what Bleacher Report had to say. They said Brandon Ingram has 1 year left on his deal before 2025 free agency, which is actually more of a feature than a bug from the Chicago Bulls' perspective. Chicago could build a trade by sending LaVine and his remaining 3 years to New Orleans in exchange for a 1 year test run with Ingram. Now, just hearing this straight up, like LaVine for Brandon Ingram, sign me up any day of the week. But the only problem with this is why would the New Orleans Pelicans consider this whatsoever? Like, I understand that they want to either move off Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson, and all the reports we have heard are indicating that they are going to choose Zion and try to ship out Brandon Ingram. But from my kind of thought process here is that they could get a whole lot more for Ingram instead of just Zach LaVine on a 3-year deal. And obviously, you know, his contract, him making around $45 million a year for the next 3 seasons, that's not a team-friendly deal. They still have to pay Herb Jones. They still have to pay Trey Murphy. They got C.J. McCollum. They got Zion Williamson. I don't necessarily think Zach LaVine, in their minds, is that needle mover. But in terms of Brandon Ingram, you know, let's just say New Orleans wants to get this deal done. In terms of him coming into Chicago, I'd be a fan of it. And I do think you could get him on the low because statistically this has been his worst year over the past couple of seasons. You know, his minutes per game were actually down, which is a bit of a shocker. But, you know, him still being the number one option in New Orleans, put up 21 points a game, still very efficient. I think he's a very underrated playmaker. You know, his ability to see over the top of the defense just due to his natural size. Like, I think that's a huge benefit to his game. But we saw him struggle in the postseason, you know, immensely this past year. In 36 minutes a game, he only averaged 14 points a game, and that was without Zion in the lineup. He did have C.J. McCollum, but he was getting the most of the usage rate, and he was getting most of the shots, and he was just not able to produce. You know, Lou Dort, I think those kind of lower center of gravity athletes where they're more stocky and they can get up underneath of the taller, slender players like Brandon Ingram is, it can definitely throw them off. But, I mean, him shooting 34.5%, you know, I think it was incredibly concerning considering he was a guy who against the Phoenix Suns a couple years ago, he had a great playoff run. But the Bulls could have a pretty solid potential core, you know, with this move. If it was Zach LaVine for Brandon Ingram straight up, I mean, again, if that's a deal, sign me up any day of the week. I just really doubt, you know, New Orleans would even consider that. But you got Kobe White, you got Ayo DeSumo. You know, I would want to bring back Patrick Williams. Obviously, other Bulls fans have, you know, different thoughts on that, but I'm still a believer in him. And then you would add in Brandon Ingram. You'd have 2 pretty good young forwards, 2 really good young guards, and that could be a, you know, couple of cornerstone pieces for the Bulls hopefully getting back into contention status. But, you know, my take on when I just hear all these moves for the Chicago Bulls is there are 0 moves the Bulls can make this summer that could turn them into a contender. There is not one trade. There is not one kind of free agent signing that could get the Bulls over the top and get them kind of over that hump, which is why I'm in the camp. Go to the draft. Move off DeMar DeRozan. Try to get rid of Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine, and you build a solid team through the draft because there is nothing they can do that could even get them close to the top of the Eastern Conference. And, you know, I love Brandon Ingram, but again, like, he would not be a needle mover for Chicago. But maybe you guys disagree with me. Maybe you want Brandon Ingram on the Bulls. You guys let me know your thoughts. Would you trade for BI? Give me a T for trade or give me a P for pass down in the comment section. If it's for Zach LaVine straight up, I'm doing it. I just think it would take a whole lot more to get that deal done. But coming up next year, I am going to dive into a Tyler Smith scouting report for the Chicago Bulls, as he's a pretty likely draft target for Chicago. But before we dive into that, guys, I want to give a huge shout-out to Prize Picks, and they are sponsoring today's video. With Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. When the finals are over, the hoops action does not stop on PrizePicks. Women's basketball is just getting started with young stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese of the Chicago Sky looking to make names for themselves alongside greats like Breanna Stewart and Asia Wilson. You could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. And also in the month of June, make sure you guys do try out esports this month, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup does not win, you'll actually get your entry fee back. So choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. No matter what the sport is or esport, PrizePicks has you covered. Just make sure you guys use promo code CLNS when you're making your first deposit, and we're going to match it up to $100. It's my favorite app I have on my phone. And hey, with the conference finals still going on in Western Conference, with the Timberwolves extending that series last night, create your lineup for the game this Thursday, and just make sure you guys do use promo code CLNS, and we will match it. All right, let's dive into Tyler Smith of the G League Ignite, as I think he's a pretty likely draft prospect for the Chicago Bulls. At pick 11, as there really is no, surefire guy. I think there's about like 15 players that we could possibly see the Bulls drafting. But today, let's talk about Tyler Smith. So he was at the NBA Combine last week, and he is a freak athlete. He is around 6'10", 6'11", with the 38-inch vertical leap. His wingspan is 7'1", standing reach at 8'9", and then also a shuttle drill, fantastic as well at 2.99 seconds. And he is truly one of the better athletes I have seen coming out of the draft. Just his combination of size, speed, and he's got some decent strength on him. I mean, it is incredible what he's able to do. His stats from the G League Ignite this past season, pretty solid as well. 13.7 points per game in 22 minutes a night, 1.3 assists, 5.1 boards. Pretty efficient as well. He actually started off his season incredibly well, really efficient. Did kind of tail off in the middle half, then picked it back up at the second half of the year, but still 48%, from the field. And he is 18 years old, and I think that's, or 19 years old, and I think that's huge when, in terms of where I want the Bulls to go in this draft, because you got guys like Dalton Knecht who are on the older side of things, and they're more 23, but, I do like the fact that Tyler Smith, he's 19, you could almost take a chance on a guy like this, and hopefully he develops into, a special player in the NBA. And I just think with where the league's going right now, we've seen guys like PJ Washington, we've seen guys, like Jaden McDaniels in the Western Conference Finals, like these super long and athletic wings. Like, that's where I want the Bulls get more players like that. And Tyler Smith's a great example. Number one pro for him is his athleticism. He is going to be one of the better athletes in this draft class. But, a con for him, I was watching just his highlight tape before we hopped on here. A lot of it is dunks. A lot of it is him just rim running and getting down, down the floor. And, that's good, but he doesn't really have any shot creation to his game. Another pro I had for him is just his defensive potential. Like, I really do believe he could be one of the better defenders in the NBA. He just needs to take that extra step and just, develop, because he is 19 years old. Another con I had is just more offensively, like, really what's his ceiling? But the thing is with a guy like Tyler Smith, if you just tell him, work on your catch and shoot three, become an elite defender, that will get you paid in the NBA. Take the Jaden McDaniels route. Take the PJ Washington route, where it's like these long wings who can knock down a corner three every once in a while. They have become so much more valuable than in comparison to years past. And also more advanced stats for him. Pretty solid as well. I mean, the true shooting percentage at 61.2, really good. Effective field goal percentage, 54.5, very good as well. Actually had a higher usage rate than I thought at 24.6. So, overall, Tyler Smith, he's a freak athlete, would be more of a developmental pick, but I would rather have the Bulls go that direction in comparison to a guy like Dalton Knecht, even though I would, if I had a general big board for the NBA, I would have Knecht probably a couple slots higher than him, but, Knecht's 23. If the Bulls were more in a win-now mode, yes, I would go to him, but I would rather take a chance on a guy like Tyler Smith, hopefully developing in the future. But you guys let me know. We've done a couple scouting reports here on the channel as of lately. Who do you want the Bulls to draft? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I'm still leaning Cody Williams out of Colorado, younger brother of Jalen Williams. We talk about Jaden McDaniels a lot as he's one of my favorite players, but he does remind me of him, a lot. So that's who I would want the Bulls to draft, but you guys let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. And make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel right there, youtube.com/@the-Bulls-Report. So get hooked up or hit that subscribe button and lock us in as you go to Bulls YouTube channel.